So yeah, you may have seen my little face on Love is Blind UK season 2. And I wanted to wait to make this video, but I want to kind of talk about the journey, how I got there, why I did it, my reaction to what you guys have seen, what really happened to a degree. Obviously, you probably heard me talk about this on podcast as well. So I'm not going to say everything I've already said on podcast. I'll try and make it sound a little bit different. But firstly, I want to thank everyone that has given me like positive feedback. Obviously, I was the bad guy this year, so I got more negative than positive. But to be honest, I don't really care. But yeah, I want to thank everybody that was like really positive, and I want to thank all the team, like behind the scenes team at Netflix and Love is Blind and the whole production crew and all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately, you know, our lives, you know, they paint a picture of our lives, and we give them an opportunity to do that. And yeah, I'm grateful to even have the opportunity to be picked to even do it. There's hundreds of thousands of people that would love to do it, and there's only a small section of people that will ever get the opportunity to do it. And, you know, if we think about season 1 and season 2, there's only 60 people in the whole country that has ever done it. So yeah, I want to just give gratitude for that. So I've kind of broken this down into sections about what I want to talk about. So I'm hoping this video won't be too long, because I don't want to go over all the talking points that you've probably heard from me in podcast, but I also want to talk about it on my own platform, because, you know, that I think that's fair. So yeah, I've kind of got some notes here on my computer. And I want to just kind of get into it. Oh, and I also want to shout out all the cast members, because, you know, whether we're friends or not, like, everyone that did it is very brave to even sign up to do something like this, because most people don't have the cojones to do something like this in the first place. So I do want to give a shout out to all my cast members, even Megan and Kieran, who everyone thinks I hate. I don't hate them. I don't hate anybody. But yeah, like, honestly, yeah, big shout out to my cast members, because I think that, yeah, it's a level of bravery to do something like this and expose your life to the world that most people would never do. To the people that are like really, really hating and tearing down people like Cal and Billy, who I guess you guys consider them to be the real villains this year. What you do need to understand is it is a TV show. It is edited. There are 11 episodes, and it equals to be less than 11 hours of footage versus, you know, hundreds of hours of what we actually lived in our real lives, which was shot and recorded, but they didn't show everything. So I think I understand why people are angry about certain things, but I also think that you should also give these people grace, and anyone that is commenting under people's pages with racist comments, death threats, stuff like that, I think you need to just kind of get yourself checked out and really think about what you're doing in your life to feel that passionately about someone you don't know. So Kyle and Billy, keep your head up. You're my guys. And big ups Sorova and Ashley as well, because I have grace and love for everybody. So with that being said, let me just put out a disclaimer. I respect the process, so I can't reveal behind the scenes stuff, and I won't ever reveal behind the scenes stuff, because, you know, I respect the process. I respect all the guys and the team at Netflix and what they do for us. So, you know, it would be irresponsible of me to say more than what I need to. And I think some people have kind of maybe teetered on the edge of that, but for me, I don't think I need to. You guys have seen what you've seen and you believe what you believe, but ultimately, I'm not here to feed into that. So in this video, I'm just going to focus on my story. So the first thing I want to answer is, why did I even do it? So essentially, I've been single. I consider myself to have been single all my adult life. I haven't had any real serious long-term relationships. The closest thing to that would have been a situation in 2022, 2023, which was with someone that I knew since my childhood. And I guess you could consider it a serious relationship. But there were some elements within that I would probably argue made it not so serious. But the reason why I went on a show is because, you know, at a particular stage in my life, I just got my first house. I've been in there for about coming up to maybe 8 or 9 months. I'd done all the dating stuff. I'd done apps. I'd done all the regular stuff. And, you know, I'm not someone who's necessarily struggling to get dates or, you know, get in relationships. But I just thought, let me try something different. You know, the opportunity came to me and I felt like, to be honest, why not try this? Why not give it a go? A lot of people will say, oh, but you're not ready for marriage or whatever. But no one's ever ready. People love to say that. But in my personal opinion, people who think they're ready doesn't necessarily mean they're ready. I think what's more important than thinking that you're ready is actually making sure you find the right person and the connection's right. Because how many people are ready but still get divorced? We know the statistics around divorce, which is not very great. But we also know that sometimes, you know, the belief that, you know, you just find your person, love at first sight, all these different train of thoughts and different belief systems that people have, the typical thing to say is, is this person ready or not? I personally don't look at it through that lens. I look at it. I look at it more from a perspective of like, am I connected with this person, and do I have the belief that we could actually live together forever? That's really, or be together forever. That's my mindset. And I think that some people viewed it more based on if the connection is right versus if they were ready, they'd probably have more fruitful relationships. Who am I to speak? I'm still single, but that's my personal belief. So the pod stage. Now you can go on the Love is Blind Instagram, and you'll see that they explain how the pod stage works. But obviously it's 11 days of dating. You date each other. It's like speed dating at the start. And then slowly it gets like longer and longer, and the dates get shorter and shorter in terms of you see less people. In my personal scenario, Katisha, funnily enough, Megan, a lady named Holly, and Sophie, those are my top 4, coming closer towards the end. Obviously I dated all the other girls too. There were some other people that actually started high, but then things started to change and they had other connections. And it's a bit of an odd thing, right? Because you could be dating someone, but they could be friends with someone else that you're dating. And you don't know, but they're talking in the women's lounge. So one girl who you might like might not really show much interest in you because she doesn't want to upset her friend. And that's how sometimes the dynamics of the show can work. Obviously, I don't know that. I never got too caught up in that, but that's how it could work. Now, the unfortunate thing about what you guys see as a viewer is you don't really get to see the depth of some of the conversations. And also it once you have those conversations and the way that it's recorded, the people that make the show are going to determine what you guys see, because it's at least over 20 or 30 hours worth of dating that you do. I think it's more like 20 hours. I think we calculated it as a group. So if you was with one person all the way to the end, like from the dating stage, it's at least 20 hours of dating, right? If you look at the actual show, it's only 11 episodes. So you probably don't even see 1% of what really took place in terms of like what they see. So an example, there's multiple examples I can give you, but one of them is like, I got a lot of shit for, when Katisha kind of rejects me, then I stay in the pod and I read the lines out about like what I wrote about her in my notepad. Like, obviously they have to cut that short, because we sat there and we spoke about that for a while. And there was a lot more that I'd obviously written because she told me a lot about her life. And then she did the same, which they didn't even show that, but like she sat there and she read all her notes out to me. It was actually quite a heartwarming moment. They didn't show it, but right. So those little things and those kind of little elements that kind of romanticize and humanize our relationship obviously wasn't shown, and that's fine. I don't think that the people that make the show necessarily care in that sense. I just think that they have to make a show. So what's the classic trope of any good story? Good guy, bad guy, protagonist, antagonist, right? So of course they kind of pit me against Demila, and that's kind of the way that it went. And that is actually how it went, in the sense of course, it was me against him in the show and in real life. But it wasn't like, oh, I don't like you, you don't like me. He's saying all this nice stuff and I'm just doing nothing. Like, obviously, I'm not Casanova, innit? Like, I couldn't just get her to pick me out of thin air. Like, I was obviously giving her, maybe not as much as Demila, but I was definitely, I was definitely sharing a lot with her as well. But what people kind of don't understand as viewers is like, they've got to create a story. So the only thing I would say, or the only criticism watching it as a viewer, is that like, someone who went through the experience, it's just that it was imbalanced. I'm not going to say that they didn't put words in my mouth. There are things that I said that I 100% said. I said when I said women don't know what they want, I meant it. When I said she's got to propose to me, I meant it. But also, when I say it, it kind of, if it doesn't have the balance of the other side of what also took place, it makes it hit even more and makes me look even worse. And that's I guess that's how TV works, isn't it? But even to add context to those moments, right? Like when I said she has to propose to me, if you think about what you saw before that, it was her letting me down, her telling me she's going to go with our other connection, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, obviously, we don't know what's happening in the other date. So I didn't even know she had said to Demila that I promise you nothing's going to change, blah, blah, blah. I have no clue when we're in the stage like that's taking place. And for me, as a person, and this is just kind of intro, to give you guys an intro, to give you guys a bit of an understanding of like, I guess what type of person I am. If you reject me, I'm not gonna I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to be forthcoming. I'm just going to be like, all right, cool. You rejected me. That is completely fine. You're allowed to do so. And if you actually watch the episode, she says she's going to go over other connection. I sit there. I say, yeah, that's totally fine. That's okay. If that's the best thing for you, then do it. Then I say, I'm going to stay and enjoy my drink, but you can leave if you want to. She decides to stay. We have a conversation. It goes from there. But still, when that date was over, she basically says, I feel disconnected from my decision. I'm about to leave. And I turn around. I'm like, how can you say that now? Like, it's a bit, and then I still in my mind, I'm rejected. So I'm thinking, I'm going home. So, that morning I packed my bags and everything's prepared for me to take my ass home. That is all I was thinking about. I'm going home. So even that last day when I go in, I'm going in to say goodbye. That was what I prepped for. That's why I didn't have a speech written. There was guys in the lounge writing out like paragraphs and essays. I didn't have nothing written. I barely had my notebook on me. It was just to say goodbye. That was all I went in there to say. That's all I went in there to do. Say goodbye. Obviously, you guys see what happens. She kind of hits me with, if it means that, I need to propose for you to stay. Obviously, it was a bit tongue in cheek when I said it. And I would never expect her to do it. But actually, really, what that sentiment was like it was to basically express my point of like, that's her sign to me that, you really want me in this process. And that was, I guess, what I needed for reassurance. Whether people like that or not, I don't really care. I don't really care. But that's how I felt. That's how I felt, because everyone wants to feel wanted, right? And obviously if I wasn't wanted, I wasn't going to go to the next stage. That was that. Obviously there's a lot more I could say. There's a lot more I can dive into, but what you guys see is what you guys see. And I'm not here to try and change your mind about what you saw. It's more to make you guys understand that there was like a lot within that. In terms of like my relationship with Demila, like me and him were very friendly throughout the whole process. We come from similar backgrounds. We know similar people. We had mutual friends. In the pod stage, I think probably once we kind of understood that, we're both going for the same person, I think that we essentially didn't really talk about it. So it wasn't like, I think people who were dating the same person and they really wanted to go for that person, they had different strategies. There were some people that would come in and they would discuss everything. Like, oh, she said this to me. What did she say to you? And there were some people like me and Demila who just didn't really discuss it. We'd come in, we wouldn't discuss it with each other. And I think personally, looking back, I felt like that was, for me, the best thing to do, because I would never want to affect his dates, and I wouldn't want him affecting my dates. That's just the reality. Like, I don't want him to affect my dates. I would prefer to just kind of not know what took place in your date, because it's not my business, and vice versa. And I think that worked out. I think that's the way it should be, personally. Because think about it like this. Imagine the day that she says to him, oh, you ain't got nothing to worry about. He comes in and says that to me. Then I'm going in that date knowing that, oh, she's already picked him. Versus like me going in there not knowing, she drops it on me as a bit of a bombshell. I'm kind of disappointed. And then like, it's just more of a natural process rather than me going in there with like these preconceived notions and ideas of what's about to take place, because he's told me everything, and vice versa if I say something to him. So I think that was the better thing to do, in my opinion. At the end of the day, it's an experiment, and the way that it works is to test you and push you to the limits. In terms of like the actual show itself and the way that, you're in a pod and the day to day, I would say it is more mentally draining than physically draining. It's a very mentally draining process. And I think you have to be mentally strong to even consider doing a show like this, because it's just so much that takes place. There's so much going on in your mind. There's a lot that happens. So it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing or anything like that. It's just like long days of filming. But yeah, enjoyable though. Now, once we get through, the proposals and Katisha says yes to me, obviously you have the reveal. Reveal was really good. I was really happy. Katisha's a very beautiful woman. Very attracted to her. Typically my type. Usually I've dated like dark-skinned black women or mixed-race women, or light-skinned women. So I was very happy. She's a good-looking woman. So I was very happy. I was very pleased. I hope she was happy. I hope she was pleased. I think that the one thing is, it is very weird. And like, you've been talking to this person for like 10 days and then like you can feel them and touch them and their voice is now matching their face. And I think it's like sensory overload. Yeah, it's enjoyable. Like it's a beautiful process. And I think that when you get to that stage, it's like, wow, okay, now it's real. And I made a comment that you guys see in the show where I said, it doesn't really feel like she's my fiance. It feels like she's my girlfriend. And I don't regret making that comment. I saw some people making comments about that comment. And I think that I still stand on that particular comment, because although you get engaged and she is your fiance, she is kind of your girlfriend, because in that particular stage, after 11 days, I'm now trying to cram as many experiences with her within like 3 or 4 weeks before we decide to get married. So I'm trying to put as much processes in place in that time frame and go through. We got to stress test a relationship as quickly as humanly possible. So, you know, I know a lot of people think, oh, well, you knew you're going to get married. Well, yeah, you do, but it doesn't take away from what it really is, you know, because of the way the show is. We think about it in some like fairy tale aspect, when there's a reality to it that we need to kind of confront head on and get through as much as possible. So for me, that's kind of how I viewed it. And I was like, okay, now we got to look in and try and make this work as much as possible. Now, once you leave the pods and we go to the retreat and we go to Cyprus, I think that's when the pressure really kind of ramped up. Obviously, we had one of the most dramatic kind of storylines, I guess, or the most dramatic thing, especially with the whole, she changed her mind in 24 hours, blah, 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 blah. So unfortunately, when we was in Cyprus, everything was not about us. It was just about her and Demila and why she changed her mind. And, you know, sitting here to this day, I know it affected her. It affected her greatly. And I really was trying my best to like put her in a position of like feeling strong about her decision, but more importantly, not being in a mind frame of like having to justify herself. But I think because there was a lot of outside pressures, it was affecting her. And then by proximity, it was affecting me. It never affected me directly because I guess I didn't make the decision. And you know, I'm not someone who like sits there and worries about what people say. You can tell from the way I've reacted to the negative comments that I've got. Like, I don't care what people say. So I've never been someone that was like overly like worried about what all the other cast members were saying or like any of the outside pressures. I kind of just was like, look, they're saying this, but you know, we're here together. So I was trying to give her that mentality. I don't think you can't ever give anybody your mentality, because I've been through what I've been through. She's been through what she's been through. It's impossible for her to have the same mentality as me, but I was trying my best to support her in that process. But I knew it was affecting her, and it was definitely affecting her mood, and it wasn't allowing her to, I can't say it wasn't allowing her to give everything, but maybe it was. I don't know. I can't say that for a fact, but I know it affected her. That's all I can say. So, and one thing about the holiday and kind of going to Cyprus, the difficulty is also, you know, you're with someone you've just met for 24 hours. Like every day, every hour you are together, and I've just met you. I know we've been speaking for 10 days, but I've just met you and I'm in your space 24 hours. You're in my space 24 hours. It is a lot, like, and that is a lot to process in that short amount of time. I don't think I felt it then, but I think looking back, I'm like, wow, like we just spoke for 10 days and now we're just together 24 hours a day. Like it really is a test on how compatible you really are, because just talking through a wall, it's different when you're with someone. You see their mannerisms, you see how they behave, you see what they do at night, what they do in the morning. You know, you get to really dive into their behavior and how they are, and they get to dive into mine. So I don't think we account for that, or it's kind of maybe overlooked how much of a process that is as a person, as an individual, as a human being. And especially with Katisha, who, you know, one of her greatest traits is that she's quite independent. She's got a big family. She's the oldest of a lot of children. She's kind of been parentified from a young age, from my standpoint. And I think that because of that, you know, she's able to kind of do a lot of things alone, which is good. I actually appreciate that about anybody. So yeah, like, for her, even it must have felt a bit weird for her. I don't know. I should probably ask her. But it must have felt a bit weird for her to just be thrust with me 24 hours a day. Like every hour of the day she's with me. That must be a lot. And it was a lot. But obviously the whole point is, you know, are we compatible? Can we do it? So there's that. And another thing that people were, a big part of the show was like Cal, and how Cal approached her around how she made the switch up. I see some people thinking, oh, Cal doesn't like me. No, me, Cal and Billy were in the gym every day. Billy and Cal would be doing workouts and I'd be doing my own workout, and I'd be in there every day with them. I think that he was looking at it from two sides. Obviously, he was trying to find out from the Mola standpoint, like why this happened, but also he's probably looking at it also like what if you could do that to Jav? So I think that maybe he was a bit strong with it, but I didn't think it was too bad. I knew she wasn't happy. I didn't. It's hard for me to say because I didn't sit in on that conversation. I only saw it when you guys saw it, but I know that that conversation happened because me and her spoke about it. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't going around questioning anybody else's relationship, but that doesn't mean that doesn't make me look at Cal in a negative light or anything. I think it's just like how Megan told Katisha what she told her. Cal's probably just being a bro, I guess, or being a guy friend, however you guys want to describe it. So yeah, one of the only things about the retreat that I'm a bit upset about is like there was a lot of dates that weren't shown. There was a lot of beautiful moments that were not shown. For example, episode 5 or 6, I think it was, there's a scene, and this, like, when I was watching it, and I watched it with the boys, I have not rewatched the show, but I watched this part with the boys, and this was the one part I was like, it's so obvious what was happening here, and it's so disappointing, was I think it's episode 5 or 6 where, you know, it starts with like Jed and Barla on the buggy date, Megan and Kieran on the boat, Billy and Ashley are on like some waterfall date that looked sick. I wish I did that one. And then Cal and Sarova are doing like the mud massage date. Then they just pan to the hotel room and me and Katisha are like sat apart. And it's a bit like, well, why didn't you show our special date? Because we did have a special date, which was like, we was on the beach. We ate like a meal on the beach. And that was like a really beautiful moment. It was nice. Like, we was expressing like our feelings for each other and, you know, how we got this far and how crazy it is that we're even here. But they didn't show it. And things like that is like, people have said that, oh, I'm blaming the edit. No, well, I'm blaming the imbalance of the edit because it's painted a picture when, you know, everyone had a special date, but our one didn't get shown. Things like that can paint a picture, right? There were other funny moments. There was moments of us in the gym. There's loads of little bits that we did that, you know, just unfortunately, you guys just didn't get to see. So when people paint this picture of, oh, Jav didn't like her, well, you didn't get to see the bits where we actually were having fun, and I was demonstrating that I definitely like this woman. But what you probably did see is like, that was probably our first sign of like maybe slight communication issues and the difference in our communication styles. And it's interesting because like in the pods, every girl I spoke to, I'd made a big point about like, for me as a person, communication is very, very important. And I don't mind if it's confrontational or whatever. Obviously, I don't want a chaotic relationship, but like, I'm the kind of person that if you're upset with me, I don't want to know about it 3 days later. I want to know there and then, because that's just how I like to deal with things. And when we was having deep chats in the pods and understanding each other's like boundaries and non-negotiables, you know, that was one of the biggest things that I spoke about. But in Cyprus, it's probably where I started to see maybe that we don't communicate as well as we could, but it was something to work on. It was still very early in the process. It was like, I wasn't going to let that affect how things went. And then we get to Manchester, and Manchester was probably, for me, the most enjoyable part as like a cast member, like from the whole filming aspect and stuff. I think that for me, when we got to Manchester, it felt a bit closer to real life. It was a bit slower, longer days. Like, it just felt, I was back in England. It just felt nice. So I liked Manchester. You know, we had enough space in the apartment. There was 2 bedrooms. Obviously, we slept together every night, but there was 2 bedrooms, but we slept in the same bed, of course. Obviously, we had upstairs, downstairs. So I'm someone that I can love you just by being in your presence. I don't always need to be doing stuff, right? So she could be upstairs, I'll be downstairs, and I'm just happy that that person is there. So I think having that space in Manchester was really good for me personally. But that's where obviously things start to kind of go a bit pear-shaped. One of the things that was obvious is like, she's independent, I'm independent, and I spent a lot of time alone, and I enjoy being alone. And I think that, you know, having that space is valuable to me. And I think everyone in a relationship values that, because not even people that are married, they're not always together 24/7. And sometimes that time apart and that space apart is like really good for people. For me, I think that Katisha felt like I wasn't thinking about her, like how she's going to fit in my life. But I was, and I was looking at the practicality of things. And I know there's a scene about, oh, I go to bed at 10. I do go to bed at 10 or 10:30, by the way, guys. Sometimes 9:30. Today, I'll be going to bed at probably 10. But no, like, she wanted to eat every day. That scene, I understand it was a little bit ridiculous. It kind of looks a bit ridiculous. Even what I was saying is a bit ridiculous. But what I meant was like, genuinely, I'm probably not going to eat dinner with you every night. Like, that would probably never happen. Like, I probably wouldn't eat dinner with somebody every night. Like, anyone that's self-employed, even people that have jobs, sometimes, yeah, there's gonna be days where you might be sat on your computer or laptop working till fucking midnight. It can happen, especially if you're self-employed, because even when you're self-employed, you're probably working longer and harder hours. And also, she knows that sometimes she wouldn't be able to eat every night with me because she's building a business. She was building her own business. She's got a makeup business. There's times where she's gonna be traveling at weddings, blah blah blah. So like I was just being realistic. It was probably the way I communicated it was incorrect. I accept that, but no, that was a bit funny, and people love making the comment about that. So, yeah, just want to clear that up. But yeah, Manchester was really a good time, but obviously it was the worst time. So, I think we really got to understand each other. We was having a lot of deep moments and a lot of deeper conversations. Some of it which was recorded, some of it which wasn't recorded. Like, for example, we went to Scotland. They didn't really show much of us in Scotland, in Dumfries, but we was by the riverbank. And there was this particular part stands out to me because it's just what I remember the most. We was at the riverbank and we was talking about like her being the only mixed race person in her town and in her school and stuff like that. And I was sitting there like, well, I can't even relate to that because in London, if you know about South London, it's very multicultural. A lot of black people. I couldn't imagine what that felt like, and it's not like it was like a heartwarming moment or like an emotional moment, but it was a moment where it made me connect with her and kind of like just understand her a bit more and her experiences and what it's like for her, coming from where she comes from. And that stuff like that, I wish they had shown, because also it's very powerful, talking about race or talking about people that are maybe marginalized. Stuff like that is quite a powerful message. So we spoke about that a lot, and yeah, that's probably one of the scenes that I wish they had kept in, but they didn't. I also spoke to her friend, and I got to meet her friend, which was interesting and it was good. I can't really remember too much about it, but they didn't show that as well. But ultimately, with that, there were still issues with communication, which I think we didn't really. I don't think we tackled as full on as we could do, because even in the scene where we was in Scotland, when we was laying on the bank, I said it there as well. I was like, you know what, like, I really like you. I'm really, enjoying spending time with you, but I feel heavily, heavily conflicted right now. And I just want you to know that, like, I feel conflicted about us having to make a decision very, very soon. And, I wasn't shy about that. I never hid that. I never pretended. Like, I just told her, like, yeah, I feel conflicted right now. And it was mainly just because I don't feel like we was communicating as greatly as we could do. Like, and the prime example was like one of the times where I asked her about what she had said to Demila, and the only reason I asked that question is just because, like, he was very, very confident. I can't remember who told me, but he was saying stuff like, she's my wife, blah blah blah, in the lounge, which I didn't have a problem with. I wasn't in the lounge when he said it. He didn't do it in front of me. He wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do anything in front of him. I had no problem him saying that, or I had no problem with that. I was just intrigued. I was more interested to know, like what made him so confident about that? Like, what did you say? Like, and the first time I asked her, she said she forgot. She doesn't remember. Second time, I can't remember what she said. Then the third time is what you guys see on camera is her saying, oh yeah, I told him not to worry. So I'm like, oh, okay, well then, yeah, of course, naturally he's going to be saying that if you tell a man not to worry. Like, I'm a man. I know if you say that to me, I'm going to be like, I won't worry either. So, it was understandable, but like little things like that. Obviously those questions were that was in the early stages of Manchester. But for me, on a communication standpoint, those are the kind of things that are in the back of my mind. Like, so if I ask a question, are you not going to tell me? Like those are little things, and I'm not blaming anybody, but those are the things that I would be worrying about if I'm going to say yes at the altar and we still can't communicate as freely as we can do. On my side, the one thing I was starting to question or try to work on is like, what have I done to not make you feel comfortable enough to share things with me? And that was like a really big thing. Like in my mind is like, what can I do to create more of a safe space where you don't feel like my reaction is going to be negative, or even if it is negative, you don't feel like it's an attack on you as a person. And I want to make you feel as comfortable as possible to be able to share whatever you want with me. That's my primary focus. Like, because if not, then we're never going to get through any communication issues that we have in the future. And then I guess with that, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, Jav was, that situation bothered him. But again, it didn't bother me. It bothered me by proximity, because she was bothered so much regarding the Demila thing that even though I'm not bothered by that particular scenario, her being bothered is bothering me because I'm with her every day. So I think that it's you should like, it's something I was able to kind of differentiate, as a person. And also the reason it didn't bother me is because I liked Demila and I like Demila. We're still friends to this day. We go out, we meet up, like, so for me, it was just like, it wasn't anything to do with him or being against him. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think that, and obviously there's a lot of context there that they can't really show in 11 episodes, but you know, I'd said that quite a few times as well throughout the process, that it doesn't bother me. It's just more that, you know, I know she's upset by it, by everyone questioning her. So of course, her being upset is going to bother me. If you have a partner and your partner's upset, it's going to bother you. So it's just a natural thing. But the actual scenario itself isn't what kind of bothered me or affected me at all, really. And to add to that, that's kind of why when we was in Manchester, I was suggesting that she go meet him. I'm the one that pushed that and suggested that, like, obviously, yeah, I suggested to her, look, you want to try and make it just, it was two things really, you know. I wanted her to take control of the situation as much as possible. And I think by meeting him, she was able to do that. She was able to fully flesh out, like, maybe how she got to her decision, her mindset around it, and, you know, her thought process. But even more importantly, I just wanted her to feel comfortable. And I think that by not having that cloud over her and by meeting up with him, you know, whether it's on camera or off camera, she would feel more comfortable. So I was really pushing for her to do it. Obviously, the scene that you guys see on the show where like she does it and I make the joke, oh, you send them your life story, it's TV. It's TV. So yeah, like that's kind of what happened. And I'm glad she did it. Like, I was proud of her for doing it. And you know, I think it's brave. A lot of people have asked me like about her not saying sorry. Like there's a scene after where she comes back and I'm like, oh, did you say sorry? Well, she says, I didn't say sorry. Like, why should I or whatever? I don't feel like I should or I'd need to. And a lot of people were like, oh, Jav, you must have been questioning her when she did that. To be honest, not really. You know, like, if she doesn't want to say sorry, that's down to her. She doesn't feel like she needs to say sorry. So if she doesn't need to say sorry, then fair enough. Like, would I say sorry? I don't know. Like, I didn't do it, so it's hard for me to say. I wasn't judging her for not saying sorry, is kind of what I'm saying. So then let's get into the main nuts and bolts, what everyone has been talking about for the show, and that's obviously Kurt and Gay going out that night, arguments, blah, blah, blah. So we'll start at the mixer scene. So obviously you guys know about the mixer, or if you've watched it, you know there's a scene where they invite the pod squad, they come back, and I'm talking to all the girls. Obviously, at this stage, yeah, me as a cast member, I've become very aware of things. And you learn throughout filming, like how things work and whatever. So, you know, even when you see how it's edited, they got me talking to the girls back to back to back, almost as if none of the other guys spoke to the girls, right? Which is interesting. You got me talking to Yolanda, you got me talking to Anu, and then you got me talking to Sophie. And with Yolanda, she's asking me like, how are things in the relationship? What do I say? I say, oh, there's hurdles, and I start laughing. So with that, I mean, the only thing I would say, my only criticism to myself is like, if you've got issues with your partner, let that stay inside. So even if we had hurdles, I should have just said everything's absolutely fine. So that's a mistake. Then Anu, she says to me, why didn't we date more? I laugh and I'm like, well, you know how the show works, but I'm laughing. Now, the thing about it is, I'm always going to be laughing and joking. I'm sorry. This is why I say I don't really care, because like, I'm always going to be laughing and joking. Now that the real thing is, I shouldn't have created a safe space for them to feel like they could talk to me that way and try and put it on me that way. That's again, my criticism of myself is like, as someone who has a partner, I shouldn't ever let them feel like they have a safe space to even come at me and talk to me in that manner. Is basically how I would look at things. Same goes for Sophie. So now Sophie's the one where you guys get a bit more footage where, you know, she makes a joke about her vajayjay. I should have shut that down. And then people saying, oh, because I said, oh, you don't live far from here, right? Or whatever. That's just a generic kind of comment, because I know she lives in Manchester. So I don't care. I'm standing on that one. I would ask that to anybody, like male or female. Like, if I'm in their city and I know they don't live far, that's a generic chit chat. Like, oh, you don't live far from here, right? Now, the way they clicked it up, because they clicked it up with me talking to all the girls back to back to back, it's almost like they're insinuating that I'm saying, oh, I'm going to go back to her house. No, that night I slept in the bed with Katisha. So But, you know, you can make anything look a certain way when you edit it, right? So yeah, that had no meaning to it. And then with Sophie, obviously it was very friendly. There was a lot of banter, but even if you watch it, you'll notice that they don't really show like the meat and bones of our conversation. It's very like minimal what they show. There's a reason for that. It's because it was basically talking about behind the scenes stuff, which kind of leads to what we was talking about in the off camera stuff as well. So we're talking about some inner workings of the show, certain aspects of the show which I can't really talk about, but it basically, we was talking about like producers and stuff, and I was saying names of the producers, blah blah blah, which is kind of why you don't really see what our actual, like, you don't see the full depth of our conversation, but you see us laughing and joking, blah blah blah. Now, like I said, I shouldn't have held space for any of those ladies to talk to me, so that was wrong, obviously. And then you see us come back, me and Katisha come back, and we're upstairs, and I'm eating, and she looks visibly upset. What you guys don't see is obviously she's upset, from my understanding at that particular moment, about a disagreement that she had with Anu. Nothing to do with me that I'm aware of. I know she had and that's what I asked her, and that's what she communicated to me at the time. If there was more, she never communicated it. So that was that. Then we go downstairs, and then that's when you see me messaging Kieran and calling Kieran. I'm like, oh, where you guys going? And I'm like, okay, cool, I'm coming. Then again, this is what they don't show you. I'm asking her to come, please come. Why don't you want to come? She's like, oh, I don't want to. She's like, I can't remember what she said. I was like, oh, please come. She's like, why do you want to go? I was like, I just want to say goodbye to the pod squad. She's like adamant. And think about it like this: if I went out to do something, why would I be begging for her to come with me? It don't even make sense. That part don't even make sense, because she's gonna be with me. So anyway, but I digress. So I'm begging for her to come. Please come, please come, please come. She says no. I say why? She says she's tired. I say, is there anything else? Then she says, from my understanding, she just says, no, it's fine, just go. So I'm like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go, it won't be long. And then she cries, or she's crying when I'm gone. But it makes it look like I'm there when she's crying. She wasn't crying in front of me. Obviously, I shouldn't have went out. That was a mistake. I've kind of said that in every single podcast that I've been on. I shouldn't have gone out. A lot of people said, oh, like, I displayed a low level of emotional intelligence. I personally don't see it that way, because I knew she was upset, but this was kind of like a common symptom of the way that we communicated. Now, me, when I'm upset or you did something wrong, I'm going to tell you. In this particular case, she didn't tell me anything. And I'm not saying that she needed to tell me, but I am saying she needed to tell me, basically. 'Cause that's what I like. I like to be told, yo, you did this, get it fixed, whatever. So there's that. And then on the flip side, you know, I could argue that, you know, there was also a low level of emotional integrity in regards to just how she wasn't able to convey what she felt inside. Because if it was related to what she had saw at the mixer, if she had saw anything, because the way they cut things in the show, they make it look like they're looking at you when they're not. So she might have not even been looking at me during that moment, but like during if she was ever upset about the way I was acting in the mixer, you know, for me, emotional integrity is the ability to outwardly display what you're feeling on the inside. And, you know, there was nothing that she had shown me. There's nothing that she said. All she had just said is that she's upset about an argument with Annie. So for me, I'm like, even if there was an issue, I would love to have known there and then. And that's just how I communicate. That's just how I am as a person. I want to know things there and then. I don't want to wait around. I don't want you to be upset 2 days later or a day later, because that can determine how I behave. Like, you told me to do something there and then, I'm going to get it done. So if you said, Jav, don't go, I'll be like, all right, cool, I'll stay, go sleep, no problem. So obviously, again, it doesn't absolve me from going out. I shouldn't have went out. I later come to find out she was saying that she was worried that I'd be hungover. Mind you, she's never seen me drunk, let alone hungover. I'm not blaming her, but, you know, we've been together for a good amount of time. You know, if I do have a drink, I never get like too drunk. Then, like, I've seen even later, the goalposts have changed a little bit, because no, I don't need to be tired. It wasn't hungover. Like, all right, is it hungover, tired? Like, I like to be specific. So that's just me as a human being. I like to be specific. I like to use precise language. So with that being said, obviously we go out, boom, boom, boom. So everyone's always going to ask me the Sophie scenario, what happened, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So Miss Sophie, again, I can't, and this is where people are like, oh, you guys are lying. You colluded together to lie about it. Like, bro, I don't need to lie. Like, I don't need to lie. We was arguing about some of the processes about the show, the inner workings of the show, some producer chat, boom, boom, boom. It was basically an extension of what we was talking about in the mixer. So maybe using the word argument was probably the wrong word, because it wasn't like we're standing there like going mad, but we were animated. We were having an animated disagreement, which I think is the fairest way for me to put it. I was discussing some things around the processes of the show and what one producer told her versus what they told me. And Sophie's someone that stands on a square, so to speak. She stands on a square. I stand on my square. As you know, I'm ready to go anytime, anywhere, any place. So we were just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. She goes in the photo booth. I sit down in the photo booth. We all know there's a no curtain, so we're not going to talk about that. And everyone can still see us. Now, people will say, why are you in the photo booth? Okay, I already accept that was a bad mistake. In fact, I shouldn't have went out in the first place. We could have went outside. Everyone would have been like, oh, Jav and Sophie are outside. People would have been guessing and making things up versus they could all still see us. You could ask anyone that was there that night, could they see us in the photo booth? They would all say yes, apart from the two people that obviously had to, that lied about it. But everyone would be like, yeah. So there was that. It was probably about 10 to 15 minutes max. And I've got footage on this phone of that night. I already had the footage of the photo. I had everything. I just kept it. I just thought, like, what's the point? I've got footage of like me talking to different people that night. I've got footage of Sophie with other people that night. Obviously, I'm not going to share it. I don't need to. I wouldn't do that. But like, I've got everything on my device. We got a group chat. It was all in a group chat. So like, all of that is kind of even why I was confused from the jump about like what I was being accused of. Then Anu and Yolanda, and I spoke to them obviously, and essentially what kind of happened is after that chat, you know, the bar that we was at wasn't really my kind of vibe. I was like, nah, this ain't really for me. I just sat down next to Patrick, Demila, Yolanda, Anu, and Sophie was sitting with us as well, actually. So yeah, we sat together. That was it for the rest of the evening. I had one rum and coke, or Jack Daniels and coke. Spent a few hours chatting to everybody, sat with the guys, and then that was it. Boom. Walked home. And actually walked back with Megan and Kieran, if I remember correctly. And then obviously, Megan had said something about how I said, oh, Yolanda makes me happy, Sophie makes me happy, Annie makes me happy, but Katisha makes me happy. Now, I don't know if I said that. If I did say it, obviously I shouldn't say that, but even within that same breath, I still say, I end it by saying, you know, Katisha's the one that makes me happy. So I think personally that's neither here nor there, if I said it or not. And that's why I'm not denying that I said it, because I can't remember specifically, and it's not fair to say that she lied about something if I don't remember. But I can only say that she lied about what I do remember, which I think is fair to say. So there's that. Then the timeline of things is even weird, because it was actually 4 days later. So we'd already gone to Scotland, come back. It's 4 days later that her and Katisha have that conversation. Megan and Katisha have that conversation where Megan says whatever she says, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, that's the only reason I thought there was a bit of an agenda, because why would you wait 4 days? I digress. That's a different argument. Whatever. It's a year ago. I'm not crying about it. So then you see me and Katisha have the initial argument. Now, I've said it in a few podcasts. I'm just going to reiterate it here. At the time, it felt like a setup. Yeah. Because, and by the way, before I even get into it, again, I just want to reiterate, because some people are some people just don't think. Yeah. And I think some people are angry because like, obviously I've been painted to be the bad guy, and some people have leaned into the bad guy thing so much that they don't like the fact that I just take responsibility and I just say, yeah, I was wrong. Like, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have even gone out. Like, I shouldn't have gone in the photo booth. I shouldn't be arguing with a woman that's not my fiance in a photo booth. Like, and I think because I just take accountability and I just say, yeah, that I was wrong. Like, people are angry. Like, wow, this guy just takes accountability. Like, no, it's all right. I made a mistake. I'm a human. I can make mistakes. But even on top of that, I think that there's a few things. Obviously, Megan and Kieran are this season's golden couple, and rightly so. They look great together. They're beautiful. Like, they're both nice looking people. Like, you know, so I'm up against the juggernaut. Not against them, but like, it's their word against mine. So naturally, like, the fans and the viewers are going to side with the golden couple. And also, I've got the villain edit alongside that to kind of back up being the villain, even though I didn't lie. So, of course, naturally, like, I expect everyone to not be on my side, even though now people are questioning things like, it's a bit weird, isn't it? But anyway, that's another thing. Let's get back to the argument. So, me and Katisha, what happens again? So, yeah, like, so this was the only time, yeah, in the whole process where I ever questioned her, because that was like, even if things weren't perfect, like we still had time to try and see how much could we improve things before the wedding day, or at least before we had to go home before the wedding, because then at least then we could come to a clear decision if we were going to do it or not. But this was the only time I ever like questioned, whoa, this don't seem real to me. And essentially what happens is, I remember so clearly because Arsenal and Man City were playing. I'm cooking fish upstairs. She goes, and that's when she has a chat with Megan. She comes back. I've got headphones. I could hear something downstairs, but I didn't know. So I'm coming downstairs. As soon as I come downstairs, I see the cameras. And that's when I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Because usually when you're filming, they mic you up, blah, blah, blah. So if you notice, I'm not even mic'd up. So I come in and I see her packing her bags and I'm like, what you doing? Blah, blah, blah. So then we have a disagreement. And then what happens after that? And then you guys see us argue. But the one thing that they leave out, just like how they left out the part where I was asking her to come with me and why she didn't want to come, the one thing they leave out in the argument, which for me is important and provides extra context to the argument, is me saying to her, yo, forget this back and forth stuff. Why don't you go and get Megan and Kieran, meet me upstairs. I'll be up there waiting for you lot. Like all three of you come upstairs. Let's have it. Let's really talk about this. They don't. And that, for me, that is an important aspect, because some people have said, oh, I didn't fight for her. No, that was my way of willing to fight for her. Because if I'm wrong, how embarrassing would it be if I just got all three of them in a room and I'm just sitting there lying? No, like all three of you come up. Let's do it. Let's do it like that. Now, I'm a very confrontational, combative person. I don't deny that. Like, I don't mind arguing with people. I don't like to argue with people, but I will. And if I think I'm right, like you're gonna hear my thoughts. You're gonna hear what I think. You're gonna hear it in detail. And if you're lying, I'm gonna catch you out and you're like, and I'm gonna spin you in circles, because I like to use precise language. In that particular aspect, they didn't show that. They just showed me walking off, going upstairs. I would never do that. Like if I'm arguing with you, I ain't gonna walk off. I ain't walking off. I'm gonna tell you what to do. You know. So like, anyway, so we get. I go upstairs, and that's the last time I saw her. Now, when that happened, I messaged her and I was like, yo, that didn't feel real. That felt very performative. Like, was you acting there? Like, we had a bit of back and forth. I'm not going to go into the details of what was said. Because ultimately, yes, I was wrong, like going out, all that stuff. But I wasn't angry about that. I was more angry about what was being insinuated. I've said that a million times. I won't go over it too much. Then obviously you see the argument with me and Megan, and specifically confronting her on what she said, because I'm not going to go into details. Actually, you see the argument and kind of what I said makes logical sense, right? You said you saw me with so-and-so all night. Every time you looked over, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get into it, but it does take a rocket scientist to work out that there was some holes in their story. So then the curtain thing. Now, people are saying, oh, he's deflecting, or, you know, he's using semantics to get out. No. Number one, if you don't think semantics matter, you're an idiot. You have to be dumb to say that. I'm going to put in the clips here just so you guys can... I'll put in the clips at this specific moment. Because obviously your perception was wrong, because the photo booth was open. It wasn't like a photo booth where there's a curtain or it can hide.
I'm pretty sure that it was.
I saw you and Sophie chatting. I saw you go into the photo booth and the curtain was closed.
The reason this is important is not to absolve me of bad behavior. Like, two things can be true at once. I can be poorly behaved and do things that were incorrect and wrong, but I can still be right about this, right? I don't get why that shouldn't be a difficult thing to understand, because it's not difficult, right? Like, yes, my behavior was wrong and I shouldn't have done it, and I shouldn't have even been entertaining it. That doesn't mean that a lie is okay. And I think when we get into, so this is the territory where people don't want to talk about, but there are some elements to being accused of certain things, and also the insinuation of certain things by a certain group of people towards me and people like me, that is problematic. I don't understand that. That shouldn't be. Anyone with half a brain cell, which I know most people don't have those brain cells, but anyone with a quarter of a brain cell can hopefully read between the lines and understand why that's problematic. Why the insinuation of you did XYZ is problematic. That's all. Because it's not, and again, I don't understand. I think sometimes, well, there's two things. I think there's a lot of people that are upset that, you know, it turns out I wasn't lying, and they're kind of so caught up in the bad guy thing that they don't want to absolve me even though I told the truth. However, I'm not even absolving myself of the bad behavior. I put my hands up that, yeah, it was all wrong. I shouldn't have even been out. I'm not removing myself from bad behavior. What I'm actually doing is saying, yeah, I got this wrong, but you guys lied. You misrepresented something. That is not a difficult thing to have. And then, yeah, a lot of people have said in a reunion, why was Megan and Kieran not held accountable for their lies? Why did Kieran try and downplay it straight away? Listen, it's his wife. I actually respect him in a way, kind of a little bit, for defending his wife, even though he knows that it wasn't true. I think he knows. I think, one day he'll sit down and be like, yeah, okay, I got it wrong. It was wrong. Apologies, bro. It's a bit mad that the way that I made it sound, even though it wasn't true. Yeah, he knows that, but he ain't going to do it because it's his wife, innit? So you got to do things for your wife. And I get that. And I'm okay with that. So I don't think, but it's interesting in the reunion that there was no accountability. There was no, okay, guys, so why did you lie about that? There was nothing about that. The curtain is not a big deal. But the insinuation and what you're implying and the reason that is specifically an issue is multi-layered, and I'm not going to say why, but I think some of you, I've seen the comments, so I know some of you, I've seen some comments, not all of them, but I think some of you are smart enough to know why that's important. Okay, so again, I don't absolve myself, bad behavior, I apologize multiple times, on camera, off camera, blah, blah, blah. So I think that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that obviously that wasn't true. So then that leads me to another thing. What was the motivation behind it? What was the agenda behind it? Was he just being a girl's girl? Even if he was just being a girl's girl, obviously it was a mistake. So you could just apologize for the mistake. I'm not asking for an apology. I don't really care anymore. It's a year ago. I've got their phone numbers. If I really, really want an apology, I could call Megan, I can call Kieran. I could be like, yo, you guys owe me an apology. But I don't care. It is what it is. So there's that. And then the only other thing that I say to people is look, if they can lie about that, then, are we not going to turn around and start to look at the accuracy of what they've said about the whole evening? Because if they could lie about that, maybe there's other elements of the story that was embellished or taken out of proportion or, kind of spruced up a little bit. It's a very simple thing to ask, and I think it's a very common sense. It's a reasonable take. I understand that a lot of people are just stupid and dumb, but it's a reasonable. Obviously, we're not in a court of law, but in a court of law, that would throw major doubts in anyone's argument. We're not in the court of law, though, but you get my point. So I think, obviously, because I've been considered the villain, no one wants to consider all of those things. No one wants to hold them accountable, blah, blah, blah. Imagine if the shoe was on the other foot. And we've all, even in the argument with Megan and Kieran, where Megan gets up and starts crying and she has her Karen moment, there's a certain group of us that know what that is and what that looks like, get up, cry, we know what that looks like. So, and some of us have had those Karen moments before, because you see me, I got my hands in my pocket. I'm behaving a certain way on purpose because I know what a Karen moment looks like. So I'm sitting there with my hands in my pocket on purpose, right? Because I know what I'm trying to avoid here. Anyway, that's that. And then obviously you see me talk to Patrick. They showed Patrick before we argued, me and Megan, but actually I spoke to Patrick after. But actually I wanted to call Demila, but they wouldn't let me call Demila, which I think if I called Demila, I guess the narrative of me being against him and him being against me would have been squashed if I called him to support me and my claims. But he's who I wanted to call, but they said no, they wouldn't let me, so it is what it is. And then I guess another thing that I've seen some people say is why are none of the other cast members backing me? I think that there's a few things. The only other main cast members that were out that night were Megan and Kieran. And the other cast members were people that didn't get to the next stage. And then the only other ones were Patrick, Demila, and Anu. Anu and Megan are friends. Me and Anu have spoken many times. She knows. So I'll just leave it at that. Demila, I'm sure if you ask him directly, he'll tell you what he saw. So I'll leave it at that. So, what is my relationship like with Katisha now? We don't speak every day. We're not best friends or anything, but we're cordial. If she ever needed anything from me or she needed support or advice on anything, I would always be an open ear for her. And I think vice versa. I don't think she hates me or she hates my guts. So I messaged her yesterday or 2 days ago. So we still message back and forth every now and then. We're not talking every week or anything like that. I think that it's in an interesting way. Although we didn't get married, we probably have the most functioning, friendly relationship of some sort compared to the other couples. Obviously, apart from the ones that got married. And then the other cast members, like, who am I friends with? Who do I stay in contact with? Me, Jed, Demila, Tom, and Charlie, who you don't really get to see too much of. Like, we've got a close little group. I still talk to Ross M. He's from Manchester. I still talk to Anu, Yolanda from the girls' side. I will chat to Chris, Billy, and Cal as well. Me, Billy, Cal, and Jed got another separate chat group. So yeah, I stay in contact with a lot of the guys. On the girl side, I don't really stay in contact with too many of them. I talk to Laurie every now and then, like if we go out for dinner with all the other girls. I've spoken to Holly a few times. Again, these are people that you didn't get to see. So I've kept like a pretty neutral relationship with all the cast members. Me and James are works out. Turns out me and James got a lot of mutual friends and stuff. So yeah, like I've kept a good relationship with a lot of people for the most part. And even like Megan and Kieran, although I don't have any personal issues with them and the show's done, it's over, it's not personal. Like obviously me and Megan will probably never be friends, but it's weird because we're quite similar. Like we're both strong-headed, we're both adamant, we're both like stubborn, and we'll both argue like to some degree to the death. And with Kieran, I think it's funny because like, you know, who was the guy that I was seeking like a bit of perspective from in the mixer? It was him. So it was never like I didn't like Kieran. It was just that it's never been, oh, I don't like Kieran. It's just that, you know, he's got to defend his missus, and that's rightly so. So I'm not even, so it's all good. So yeah, what's next? People have asked me, am I going to do another show? Obviously, I brought the vibes to this show. Show would have been pretty boring without me. You know, reality TV, I think that's my first time doing it. And I think I learned a lot just from that process. And for someone like me who's like quite cerebral, I'm quite analytical in my approach and the way that I think about things and the way that I view things and the way that I observe things and the way that I even talk about things. You know, if I was ever going to do TV again, it needs to be in a space where I'm able to express myself, and, you know, I want to be able to dictate more of it. So ideally, I would like to do, if I was going to do something, it would need to be something where there's maybe a bit more time so you can get to see more of me, more of my personality, and you can like really understand me as a person without so much heavy editing. Or something like athletic. I'd love to do like one of these athletic shows, like the 100, is it the 100 or something like that? Like, or SAS, Who Dares Wins. Something like that would be sick, because I'm obviously fitness junkie. I love to train. So I would love to do something like that where I put my physical capability to the test. But I don't know. I'll keep my eyes open. I'll keep my options open. Right now, I'm going to focus on my YouTube channel and my digital marketing business, my AI digital marketing business. That's kind of my main focus at the moment. And it will stay that way until we hit 7 figures, which is really just my focus. I want to build up my personal brand on this channel and talk about issues that I don't even care about the personal brand. I just want to touch on issues that are happening in real life and yeah, keep going. So those were long videos, an hour. Can't believe I knew it was going to be an hour, but yeah, can't believe we're here. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed Love is Blind UK season 2. It's a shame it didn't work out the way that it should have and the way that I would have liked it to, but ultimately I didn't find my person. And, you know, I always take responsibility, like my behavior and the way that I was in those moments wasn't the best, and it ultimately hurt someone else, and I wouldn't ever intentionally hurt anybody, of course not. So I think that sometimes people that, you know, they see me, I'm not very remorseful. I'm remorseful. Obviously I don't want to hurt anybody, but I'm not going to sit there and cry about it. Like, what's done is done. I've said my apologies and it is what it is. So we have to move forward, and I look forward to looking forward. And in regards to, you know, my partner on the show, Katisha, obviously she knows, you know, we've had a long chat the other day. She knows that how I feel and how I felt at the time. And I think that's why, you know, you'll never hear me badmouth her. And I hope she never badmouths me, but if she does, it's all good. We walk and talk with grace. Anyway, peace and blessings. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff.